Hello, everybody, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 8 of History's Greatest Idiots, the show where we go back through all of human history and bring you lessons so that you can learn from the mistakes that humanity has repeated time and time again, and hopefully never repeat the mistakes again. But who are we kidding? We're humans. Mistakes are fun, and they give us material and content, so thank you, stupidity. Joining me as ever is my amazing co-host, Derek. Derek, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing great.
Excellent.
For the most part. And we were talking about health and stuff before we started.
We're getting old. It's important to talk about it.
That's the thing. I was just before the show, a little bit of lower back pain, popped some ibuprofen, and then I struggle with anxiety from time to time. Popped an anxiety pill, and my wife says, "How do you know you're over 40?" And I was like, "What?" She's like, "Ibuprofen and anxiety meds. There you go."
yeah, there you go. You're over 40 and you're living in a world that really should be calmer. Mine is I like kind of bend over to put my shoes on or pick something up, and I just hear it, and I'm like, "Who the fuck was that?" Oh, that's me. Right? Yeah. That's me making that horrifying noise. Yeah. And also, I wake up in the morning. I've had this for years. I occasionally, when I have time and money, I get like a shoulder and neck massage. Suffer, toasters. You fucking whippersnappers. Yeah, I occasionally have like I constantly have a really bad neck thing, and I know it's going to be a bad day when I wake up in the morning and I just do this, and it just goes like that, and I'm like, oh, in the moment feels great, but afterwards I'm like, I might have a problem.
Dude, I hate those days when you wake up and you got to like turn your whole body to look at things.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Just so you know, kids, try and be careful as you get closer to 30. This is just a random thing. It can happen in your 20s too. I think your bones just hate you. They do. And I've got to be really careful because I could end up with because of the amount of meds I've taken for Crohn's disease, I could end up with like osteoporosis. So I have to be really careful. When I was pushing 30, I was I was 24, 25 actually. What am I talking about?
That's pushing 30.
That's pushing for 30. I carried a small 2-seater sofa, and I was like, this is fine. I could take it. It's barely anything. Carried it up a flight of stairs by myself, pulled it, and then like climbed back over and pushed it and stuff. Fucked my back up really, really badly, and actually it has never, I mean, it's not like I really injured it, but every now and then I like tweak it, and it never used to happen before that. So like once you fucked up your back once,
oh yeah, it just happens.
It does. We've all had shitloads of injuries. I've torn both my Achilles tendons. I've had heart surgery. I've now got Crohn's disease, so basically all of me is falling apart. So yeah.
Everything's falling apart these days.
It is.
You're
kind of you're getting better, and today you're like surprisingly better. So today, like your Wolverine healing factor has like kicked in.
My leg's good. It was weird, which had me worried about DVTs, and NHS talks about that all the time. And healthcare here is not free, so I'm not really going to go in and get it checked out if it could be a strained muscle, which I think is stupid on my part.
Yeah, and also like it's also the kind of the fear of embarrassment. Like you're going to go into the doctor's surgery and you're like, "Hey doc, look, I'm a little concerned. It might be nothing." And then he'll spend 2 minutes and he'll be like, "Yeah, it is nothing. That'll be $800, please," or something like that.
Yeah, I'm already limping along. I'm supposed to have my gallbladder out, but I'm not going to do it until I have to.
Can auction that. Sell that to our fans. Auction that to raise money for your medical costs. Gallbladder. Yeah. Get yourself to a vet. Get them to take it out. It'll be cheaper.
Exactly. Get that vet from Better Call Saul.
Oh yeah.
Oh, he's retired now. That's right.
That's fine. Yeah, we'll find another one. There's plenty of dodgy vets out there. So things going really well over in Arizona. That's good to hear. Things have been kind of crazy here over the last few days. I've been super busy, even more so than normal, but it's been like a productive busy. I've started using in my professional day-to-day life. We started trying to use Chat GPT, the controversial generative AI that everybody's like, oh my god, it can do everything. It can't. It's kind of shit at some things, but we initially tried it out for some of the podcast audio that the company I work for does, and it was a long way away from tears in the rain, like that kind of famous Android speech. It was nothing like that. It was like the most uncanny valley audio I've ever heard in my life. It took a normal human voice and made it sound horrifying. So we're a good 5 years away from AI podcasts. But for writing, if you put in the right prompts, it can do thousands of words for you in a second. The flow isn't there, and the structure is a bit all over the place. However, the basic legwork information is there, and that's great. You just have to go in and do like the spark of humanity to make it look.
See, better. I toyed around with novel AI with trying to do some short stories, but like the prompt and learning how to do all that was like computer programming all on its own. So
true.
I just write my own stuff.
Yeah, I do too, and I always stress that. I think, and this is something that people talk about when they talk about the gold rush. They say that the money wasn't in the prospecting for gold; it was in selling picks and shovels.
There you go.
And I think what's going to be the big thing in generative AI is not necessarily the AI itself, which I'm sure will be profitable, but it will be the people who develop and build the prompts that make everyone's life super easy, and they can charge like, hey, this is a prompt to get you to do this. That'll be $4 a month, and thousands upon thousands of people will pay it.
See, I feel like I need to start learning how to do it and get into that next phase, but it's so annoying.
It's so hard. I did HTML in my first university course. I also did a bit of basic C+. Fuck, I just couldn't get my head around it. Just made no sense to me. That's why I'm glad first of all, Adobe came along with all their wonderful programs, and then now we've got generative AI to take its place. So we're essentially at a point where we can command computers to do things for us. So not far off. Yeah. But there is still idiocy in generative AI. Believe me, they come up with some really fucking stupid responses. However, probably nothing as stupid or as horrible as the people we're about to talk about. So Derek, could you tell me about your idiot for this episode, please?
Absolutely. It seems like the world is losing its collective mind these days, and I kind of went back and forth a lot on whether or not I even wanted to cover this guy.
Right.
Partly because he goes after people sometimes, and I'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, if the Scientologists aren't coming after us, we're fucking fine.
Right.
We've got libertarians, Scientologists, none of them have come for us. So if this fucker wants to come for us, bring it on. We've got no money and we don't care.
Just for good measure, though, I'm not even going to mention his name until the end of it. So good luck, folks. He's a shining example of what not to do and how not to behave if you want to be part of like making the world an ever evolving better place. He's like the anti that. And the kicker is he's kind of pretty chummy with another super douche that I covered earlier this season. So, but now they're fighting, but not like real fighting, like on the internet fighting, but not on the real internet fighting.
Fighting for attention fighting.
Well, yes, they're just all falling apart. And lately it kind of seems like a lot of the folks that have been behaving poorly, like Nick Fuentes and Andrew Tate and this dumbass, are starting to lose popularity and they're falling apart. And for that, we're all really lucky, I think.
Yeah, Toastoid here. It's Elon Musk's, isn't it? No, it's
not yet.
Not yet. We're not quite there. We're not quite Elon Musk level yet. We'll wait until we grow to a point where we can name big names and maybe get them to interact with us. Because if there's nothing in life that is as predictable as Elon Musk taking the bait, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I am off Twitter though, so I can't have him take the bait.
Yeah,
you'll have to do it, and I'll watch along.
I have no problem doing that.
I think if we're really lucky, though, all of these people are going to crash and burn and fall into obscurity before they can like band together and form some sort of evil anti-justice league or whatever the hell they're trying to do. This dude was born on the 18th of October in 1984, which makes him younger than me.
And me.
That's neat.
Oh, man. That means that as his elders, we can illegally beat him to death. Did you know that? That's a law now. Because I just said it. I'm joking. No.
Oh. Hey, you know what? He reports news just like that, but we'll get into it.
Oh, okay.
He's born in, I'm going to say this wrong, Chatham, Kent, England.
Oh, right? Okay. Chatham. Yeah, I've been there.
He was born to a Jewish mother and a half Greek and half Irish father. And I mention that only because I think it's super interesting that so many of these hateful folks seem to have a self-hatred of sorts, and this dude's no different.
Yeah, that is quite a common theme, going right the way back to our friend, the inventor of the sea monkeys, who
Exactly.
funded fascist movements across America. Weirdly, so yeah, please go on. I think I know who this is, but I could be wrong.
We'll figure it out. His parents were divorced when he was still a kid, and he was raised by his mother and her second husband in the small town in Kent somewhere. Um, his family was financially comfortable, but emotionally unstable, and there was a lot of tense relationships between him and his parents. And as a teenager, he took off and moved in with his paternal grandmother, where he went to school at Simon Langton Grammar School for Boys in Canterbury.
Oh, nice.
Where he was expelled at some point for what he describes as outrageous behavior.
Outrageous behavior. Then again, if it's a grammar school in the 90s, that could just be smoking a cigarette behind the bike shed or something. Is this idiot's name Martin?
No.
I don't know. I think I know who it is, but yeah, I won't say.
So from getting expelled there, he went on to attend, in no particular order here, just so everybody knows, Wolfson College, Cambridge, and the University of Manchester, where
he went from Cambridge to Manchester. It's normally the other way around.
No, I didn't say it. I told you it was in no particular order. I'm just reading them off.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The neat thing, though, is he failed to obtain degrees at any of those places.
Wow.
In one interview, he talked about his time at Wolfson before he was thrown out, and he says that they, quote, threw me out after repeated warnings for the ridiculous, trivial reason that I didn't show up to supervisions, didn't submit any essays, and spent most of my time shagging and drinking instead of reading medieval literature. I don't know if that's it seems like a totally valid reason to me. I don't know if that would be ridiculous or trivial.
Yeah,
not doing your work and not going to class.
I think, yeah, I mean, university, kind of part of it is attendance, as much as some people hate to admit that. But yeah, you kind of have to show up to get that shit done. And also, like, that whole, and reading medieval literature, like, stop being a fucking tryhard, mate. Honest to God.
He really, really is. And it's weird because the gamer culture comes in here in a little while. And
I know who it is. Okay,
made fun of gamer culture initially. Anyway, sometimes between his drinking and banging, he found time to publish a couple of poetry books under a assumed name, the pen name of Milo Andreas Wagner.
Definitely know who it is now.
Dick. In 2007, he released Eskimo Papoose, and it came under fire for biting lines from pop music and television without any sort of attribution. He says it was done deliberately and the work was satire, so it's okay.
Yeah, that sounds like the Room excuse. You know, like I knew what I was doing. I knew it was all comedy. It was definitely not a deliberate dramatic performance. No, I knew it's all comedy. No, you thought it was serious. This is just you trying to get in on the laughter. That's all.
Right. And I'm kind of tired of the excuse with all of these people of, but that's not what I meant, or you're being too sensitive, or it's just a joke. Like they cop out every time and try to dodge any sort of responsibility for their own actions or words. And it sucks.
Yeah.
What?
I said, yes, it does.
Oh,
it does.
Sorry. I'll get off my soapbox here and wander.
No, it's fine. I know who you're talking about. They need soapboxing into a
it'll happen again. Don't worry. Where was I? So, from not graduating anywhere, as far as I was able to determine, he went on to be a writer.
Of course.
Which he landed his first real job with the Catholic Herald, and his time there was short-lived because in 2009 he started working as a technology journalist for the Daily Telegraph. And I think journalist is kind of like a
correspondent, maybe. Like he knows something about tech, therefore they'll use him. So
yeah, and his writing was more like clickbait meets negging, if that's a thing. So
that's not real journalism.
Like one of his titles was "Men Perform Better in Many Technology Jobs. Must we apologize for that?"
Oh, this is absolutely 100% Telegraph headline stuff here. That's like, there's no real journalistic integrity to the story. It's literally just outrage bait from the second they publish it. It's awful.
Yeah. Well, and this guy is awful. So I guess maybe he deserved to be there, or maybe that's where he got his start. But from that title, you might draw the conclusion that he's anti-feminist, and you might be right. He's anti a lot of things. Islam. I'll get into all that.
Yeah.
So for the sake of time, I'm going to try not to point out all of the areas, but the important thing is to pay attention to what may be causing the douchebaggery so we can guard against it in the future if we see our friends behaving this way or catch ourselves slipping.
Yes.
So when he was asked why he was drawn to being a tech writer, he was cited as saying it's due to the lack of women. Women have a huge competitive advantage when they go into tech because there aren't many other women. They get coverage that they don't deserve. When they enter a room, people pay attention to them. Privately successful women will tell you this, he said. It struck me as garbage, so I stayed in tech.
Okay. Yeah. That's a conversation that has never happened. I guarantee it. That's entirely fictitious, Milo.
I don't know. The more I started reading and learning about this guy, the less that I liked him, and the more I was finding myself saying, "What the fuck is wrong with people?"
I know.
So by far, his greatest preoccupation appears to be women in the modern women's movement. And in an interview on Focus.net from Kristen Brown, he says outright almost, quote, "Women's rights is one of the great successes of our society, but it seemed that we were taking a retrograde step." And then continues, "We're going backwards. We're giving people like feminists podiums to bully people. A lot of what I've done since is purposely ridiculing that and getting under the skin of people that I've decided are bigots."
Okay. Which is a very cop-outy way of saying I'm trolling people deliberately because I don't like them. Basically.
Yeah. Which is this guy's MO for sure.
Yeah.
And he parted ways with Telegraph in 2011 to go on and co-found his own gossip rag, The Colonel.
Yeah. Never heard of that fucking paper.
Yeah, I haven't either, and I don't know. Like, can you call a website a rag, or is that reserved for tabloids and magazines?
We can call him a hack. That's one thing we can say for sure.
Okay.
We'll call him a hack.
So in this article from Kristen Brown on Fusion.net, they talk about a profile in The Guardian that describes him as a man who collects enemies like carrier bags. And for incredible number of public spats that he's picked, or for the number of public spats that he's picked. And he responded to that Twitter criticism by saying that he's a sexist, misogynist. Of somebody calling him a sexist, misogynist prick. He said, "We write about how tech is changing the world around us. You write about how many penises you've you've sucked this week." That's quote. I wasn't comfortable saying that. I don't know why.
That's all right.
So when former contributors from The Colonel started pursuing legal action against the company for failing to pay them, The Guardian started publishing threatening emails that he had sent to some of his unpaid former writers. And in one of them, he threatened to unleash embarrassing photographs online. In another,
that's revenge porn.
Exactly. And in another, he wrote, I quote, "You've already made yourself permanently unemployable in London with your hysterical, brainless tweeting by behaving like a common prostitute after starting a war with me, and perhaps you are now discovering." I mean, probably should have said that with an accent or something.
Does brainlessly tweeting stuff make you a prostitute? Because if that's the case, I'm a massive whore. But I don't think those two are mutually exclusive, to be honest.
I don't think they're related at all.
No, I think there are plenty of people who are not sex workers who tweet stupid stuff. Elon Musk, although we don't know for certain, but he tweets stupid stuff. You never know, it might be a connection.
Got a lot of kids. Maybe he did pay.
Yeah, and also sex workers generally reasonably considered with what they tweet because they know their brand and they know their audience. So, yeah, I don't think they tweet stupid stuff really. So, yeah.
Well, you're getting the picture of the kind of guy this guy is, right?
Yeah. Just
so the colonel goes under in 2013, and after he settles the debts, he sells it to the Daily Dot, where it's relaunched. You'd think he'd be out on his ass, but they retained him as an advisor with the company for some reason. Doesn't really
matter.
Of
notoriety at this point, so it's like figurehead status, maybe. Yeah,
maybe. In 2014, though, he goes to Breitbart News.
I'm gonna be sick.
He starts out as a writer, and by October of 2015, he's put in charge of the new Breitbart tech section. And
hey, old folks, look at this new remote control.
He's actually rose so fast with them, though, because of his involvement as a lead actor in a little thing called Gamergate.
Oh, fucking hell, here we go.
So you kind of wonder how his involvement in that would get him promoted. But if you know Breitbart and you know what Gamergate is, you know why they would think it was cool. So for those of you that are unaware, Breitbart's a far-right news and opinion commentary website. And Gamergate was a harassment campaign that I'll dive into here. It was a loosely organized, misogynistic online harassment campaign and backlash of right-wingers against feminism, diversity, progressivism, all of that going on in video game culture. And there's
particularly Anita Sarkeesian. She seemed to get the worst of it.
There's a ton on it, and I do highly recommend that people go out there and Google that shit. It's called Gamergate or hashtag Gamergate. And this guy kind of led that, and for that, he's a dick. But moving on. I should also mention, again, that he does like to go after people critical of him, so sorry about that. And I'm going to also mention that the information that I've presented so far, I have not yet named him.
No.
And everything is available, published from credible sources. And the rest is just my opinion on the guy. So
I'll say it, though. I don't mind. His name was Mike. No. Fuck you, Milo, you piece of shit.
Yeah. You are. His autobiography titled Dangerous was announced in December 2016, and he scored an $80,000 advanced payment for the book's writing from the planned publisher Simon & Schuster.
Yeah. Also, who publishes an autobiography at 32 when they've not become president or a ruler or like a Nobel Prize winner or some shit? He's
not even a successful motivational speaker.
No, he's failing upwards. That's it.
A day after the announcement, though, the pre-sales for the books elevated it to first place on Amazon.com list of bestsellers, which makes me depressed. But in February of 2017, Simon & Schuster canceled its plans to publish the book in the wake of a video where he talks about sexual consent, and it creates a controversy, and we'll get into that as we get there. 2015, Twitter briefly suspends his account for no reason, according to him. Others, news sources, have speculated it was due to a violation of speech and harassment codes. Probably,
yeah.
And that led other conspiracy theory people to be worried that Twitter was targeting the right side of politics. Elon.
Yeah.
Also in 2015, he started a string of speaking events. He kicked it off with the quote, dangerous, derogatory F word towards homosexuals tour.
Really? Oh, okay. Right.
He thinks it's okay.
Yeah. Am I right in thinking he's either gay or bisexual?
He says that he's ex-gay. We'll get into it.
What? Oh, God, here we go.
So he kicks off this tour of speaking events on the campuses of universities across the United States and the UK. Thankfully, a lot of the US dates were canceled, but many more were met with protests and violent demonstrations.
Yeah,
so
that was always going to happen.
Yeah. In 2016, January, he sets up this privilege grant for white men to balance out scholarships for women's and minorities.
Fuck's sake.
Yep. He participated in a telethon to raise money for the privileged grant to help white men in their unequal advantage.
As if I'm sorry. Look, I know telethons are things that usually work, but there's no way a privileged white man is going to be calling in at that time of night. They're too busy gorging on foie gras. It's just not going to happen, right?
Well, it happened.
Fuck.
$100,000 was received in donations that night, and a further $250,000 was pledged.
Holy shit!
But by August 2016, over $250,000 had gone missing from the privilege grant.
Oh, right, yeah. There's the smoking gun right there. I wonder what happened to that money.
His response: "I'm sorry for mismanaging the grant. I didn't spend any of it.
What?
The fund has been shut down." But
No. Hold on, Milo. I'm sorry about mismanaging the money. I haven't spent it. It's shut down. You can't do that. You fucked yourself if you ever go to trial, because you've admitted fault. You've said that you've mismanaged it. You've possibly lied about maybe not spending any of it, and then you've just said it's done with. It's fine. No, it's not. What the fuck?
Honest mistake.
Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't spent. Sure.
In 2017, at an event at the University of Washington, a big old protest turned into a violent clash where a 34-year-old man was shot and suffered life-threatening injuries because somebody released pepper spray into the crowd and shit went haywire.
Right. Yeah, that's not a good thing. Is that was it the police that released that, or was it just some random fucker with a spray gun?
There was some far left activists that were there bent on a little bit of violence as well, clashing with the far
anarchists
right,
kind of thing.
Yeah. By any means necessary is the group, I believe. That was that one.
I know them. Yeah, I know them. Yeah.
He was, after that, he's scheduled to speak at UC Berkeley, which is fucking dumb if you know UC Berkeley. And a petition was circulated to cancel the event, and 1,500 people showed up to protest on the steps of Sproul Hall.
Wow.
And then violence happened because, according to the university, around 150 masked agitators showed up on campus, interrupted the protests, set fires, damaged property, threw fireworks, attacked members of the crowd, and threw rocks at police.
Okay.
Again, that was far left that might have been doing that.
Yeah. I mean, it's very hard to know for certain when you have masked people. It's not like they're wearing American flags and storming the Capitol with their faces on camera, at the start of the year. But
live streaming it or anything.
Yeah, or live streaming it. But yeah, when you've got people in masks, it's always very difficult to know who to blame. But I guess it makes sense that it would be a similar attack or response, especially if they're anarchists. So yeah, because like the violence thing, that's slightly debatable in terms of protests of certain nature. But the destruction of property against a university that is largely quite peaceful, it's like there's kind of really no justifying that, really. So
yeah. Well, where was I? Oh yeah,
sorry.
So the violence, throwing rocks, all that. November 2017, he heads down to do a tour in Australia. Hey, there's communism.
We do have communists in Washington State. I'm sure you do. There are communists everywhere. They're embedded everywhere. Antifa is everywhere.
I've been watching a couple of other like YouTube channels that I really like, and I can I recommend them while we're in the middle of this?
Yeah, sure.
Knowing Better on YouTube. They're huge. Okay. I'm sure most people have already heard of them. I just found them, and if you're like me and haven't heard of them, you can learn a lot. Also, Second Thought, which is I guess like a socialist dude. He's super cool. Gets some of his facts wrong, so it agitates me. But for the most part, he's on point.
Yeah.
He's like really, really on point.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Anyway, back to Milo here. So he's on tour in Australia, in Sydney and Melbourne and along the Gold Coast and Adelaide and Perth. And during his show in Adelaide, he stirred up controversy by putting up an unflattering photo of a feminist, Clementine Ford, from when she was a teenager with the words unfuckable superimposed over her face for some reason.
Oh, that's like, I was going to say the first part of that was kind of mean and really inappropriate. Like, why would you essentially show someone's picture from the teen? I'm sure Milo doesn't have particularly flattering pictures from when he was a teenager, but also to then, like, how old was this picture of her, and then to put unfuckable, like, that's
yeah. It's
I
from when
mean,
she was a
if
teenager.
she's under a certain age, then yes, she literally is, because she can't consent to it. So
he might disagree with you. We'll get into that too.
Oh fuck.
So during his event in Melbourne, he stirred the pot again when he described Australian Aboriginal arts as, quote, crap and, quote, really shitty.
Well,
so violence erupted again outside when left and right protesters began clashing in police. Then in October, good Lord,
wow.
BuzzFeed published a bunch of leaked email chains from him and his ghostwriter, Alam Bakhari.
Okay.
The report alleged that they regularly solicited ideas for stories and comments from people associated with the alt-right and neo-Nazi movements.
I mean, that's
Among
not
those,
surprising. Go on.
yeah, those people that they contacted were Curtis Yarvin, a central figure in the neo-reactionary movement, Devin Saucer, the editor of white supremacist magazine American Renaissance.
Heard of him.
Andrew Aurenheimer, the administrator of the neo-Nazi website The Daily Stormer.
Ugh.
And Baked Alaska, a commenter known
fucking idiot.
known for his anti-Semitic and pro-Nazi tweets.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a real who's who of shitty people.
Yeah. Of what's that smell of? Awful human beings. Yeah. I'm just amazed that David Duke wasn't in there, or the ghost of like Adolf Hitler or something like that. He's basically gone everyone else. So
hard to get their opinions.
Yeah, slightly.
The last one was Baked Alaska.
What was the last one? So if you don't know about Baked Alaska, I would. There are numerous videos you can find online talking about Baked Alaska's antics. I think he may have been banned from YouTube. I could be wrong on that. Not a very nice guy. Started out slightly controversial and then like kind of got progressively worse, I think, as time went on, to the point of full-on anti-Semitism and horrible shit. So yeah, go ahead and watch some of the supposed exposed videos about him, but bit of a warning, he's not a particularly nice guy.
Yeah. Well, you want to hear something gross about Milo?
Okay.
So in that story, they also reported that he has a penchant for using personal passwords with anti-Semitic overtones, like Kristall, in reference to the Kristallnacht.
Kristallnacht, yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh,
and then another one was Long Knives.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's gross, right?
Yeah.
So in 2017, a video surfaces of him singing America the Beautiful at a karaoke bar.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with that, right?
No, it's fine. Yeah.
Well, there's a crowd of neo-Nazis there and white supremacists, including Richard Spencer, who were cheering him on with the Nazi Sieg Heil salute.
Jesus.
Of course,
Yeah. I mean,
he
karaoke, normally it's just people being off-key singing Oasis songs, but that's... Yeah,
yes. Well, and then he's tying it in with America the Beautiful. But he says, though, that he didn't see the Nazi salutes while he was singing. And he said, he's extremely myopia. He's got extreme myopia.
Well, I mean, there's an argument to be made for people who do arena tours that when you have stage lights on you, it can be very difficult to see beyond like the front 2 rows because you're essentially blinded at a certain point. However, this is a karaoke bar with rotating shitty LED lights. This ain't no, Cow Palace or some shit like that. He's not in the Hollywood Bowl. He can see what's going on right in front of him. Fuck.
Yeah, well, and he's kind of like trying to be the Neo from the Matrix of dodging responsibility.
Yeah.
But there's a problem with it because according to the bartender that was on shift that night when he came in, he came in with Spencer and the entourage and insisted on singing karaoke, even though it ended earlier that night.
Wow. Okay.
He had been partying with him, it appears. So,
yeah,
you think it's gotten bad enough, but
I know it's going to descend. This man has been plumbing the depths for decades.
You suck when Ben Shapiro doesn't like you.
Holy shit, that's really bad.
He's accused him of racist and anti-Semitic behavior. He's criticized his attempts to distinguish between real racist or bigoted behavior and trolling. stating
sorry, but Ben Shapiro has been saying this about Milo.
He says Milo shouldn't be doing what he's doing in trying to distinguish real racism and bigoted behavior from trolling, because, as Ben Shapiro says, words have meanings.
Oh, that's rich. Okay.
He's
like when he said Andrew Neil was a liberal, which is hilarious because he's made an entire career working for Rupert Murdoch. And he even said so. He's like, if you knew anything about my career, you'd realize how ridiculous that statement is. Just before Ben Shapiro walked off stage because he wasn't debating a high schooler or some shit like that. He'd actually met his match somewhat.
Well, this part makes me like pained to say, but I kind of agree with him that you shouldn't be trying to make a distinguishing, because being a troll is still doing the same thing as targeted mean assholeness.
Yeah, like, and if you are, look, there's certain circumstances using words, racist words, is illegal. It is a hate crime in certain circumstances. So when you are, no, I was just trolling. If you have done certain things in a specific sequence or situation, you've probably broken the law, and that's why, you know, you can't just use trolling as an excuse, because if you've broken the law for anti-Semitic language or racism, then you might face the consequences of the law. So trolling is not an excuse for being a fucking horrible human being. It's not just a different personality. There aren't the same entry and exit rules. Okay, kids, listen up. There aren't the same entry and exit rules to the internet that there used to be. You used to be able to just log onto a chat room back in the mid to late 90s and say whatever the fuck you wanted, and nobody knew, because your name was Fart Breath 69 or something. Nobody knew who you were. They were never going to find you, and you could say whatever you wanted. That doesn't happen anymore. People find you and your life is ruined. Stop being a troll. You're going to fucking ruin your life in the future.
Don't worry, he ruined his without being a troll.
Oh yeah. What if you're an asshole to Nazis? That's fine. Yeah.
Just ignore them. Don't be an asshole. Well, I can't help it. I'm always an asshole.
Everyone's slightly asshole-ish. You can't get around it.
So to go back in time for a minute, I want to bring up something from his past that has him kind of under fire in the media recently, and totally has gotten him shunned by the right wing that was like just embracing the hell out of him earlier.
Wow.
So in an interview in January of 2016 on an episode of the podcast Drunken Peasants, he stated that sexual relationships between 13-year-old boys and adult men and women can, quote, happen perfectly consensually, because some 13-year-olds are, in his view, sexually and emotionally mature enough to consent to sex with adults. He spoke favorably both of gay 13-year-old boys having sex with men and straight 13-year-old boys having sex with adult women. He used his own experience as an example, saying he was mature enough to be capable of giving consent at that age. And then he stated that pedophilia is not the sexual attraction to people 13 years or older who is sexually mature, but it is rather the actions and attraction to children who have not yet reached puberty.
Right. Okay. Thanks for the distinction.
Yeah. Needless to say, later in the interview, he had some pushback from the hosts. And,
shockingly.
Yeah. He said that he thinks the age of consent law is probably about right. In response to that,
you're about there. Yeah.
It's probably roughly at the right age. He couldn't even stop himself, continued on, but there are certainly people who are capable of giving consent at a younger age, and I certainly consider myself to be one of them.
I wonder. So he said he was using his own experiences. I probably don't really necessarily want to know too much about that. It sounds like he was either raped or sexually assaulted when he was a minor, and this has clouded his judgment on that situation, and I think that's probably not something he should be weighing in on. I hope he's assessed whatever that situation was. He can say he was giving consent. We talked about this with George Lazenby when he was 15 and he was seeing that 23-year-old neighbor. Now that's right. Sexual assault. There's no two ways about it. Even at the time in Australia in the 50s, whenever it was, that's still sexual assault. And you know, you can't say that you were consenting because in your 13-year-old mind, you're like, oh yeah, I want this to happen. It's not quite the same thing as giving consent, because everyone knows, when you become someone, your hormones go crazy, you kind of want to do stuff. That's
Right.
fine, but there are laws in place really to kind of protect you, because you don't know the long-term impact. And unfortunately, studies have proven that there is significant long-term impact to these choices. And I don't know if Milo's recognizing that. Maybe, unfortunately, the trauma has kept him in the mind slightly of a teenage boy who's just looking for lols, essentially.
Possibly. I think that, like, this is a perfect example of why not shunning mental health care and
Mm,
trying to have people talk about things and deal with stuff earlier
yeah.
needs to happen, so we can prevent people like this from,
Yeah,
I'm assuming, in pain, trying to feel better, doing this for
mm,
attention and clout.
exactly. And like, you ignore a problem long enough, it becomes significantly better, significantly worse, even. Sorry, even if you think you've got it under control, if it's a big thing and you think, oh, I'm handling this okay, you might find that like 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, something big happens and you go. Your mind just breaks, and that's because you've been hanging on to this for so long and you haven't recognized it. So it's so
Yeah.
important to talk about these things. And I do feel in this instance, even though he's an evil motherfucker, I do feel quite bad for Milo, because that's trauma
Oh,
right
yeah.
there. And even if he doesn't recognize it, that is probably some sort of traumatic event that may have shaped his thinking to the point where he thinks that's okay. It ain't.
Well,
So,
it very well could have, and because of the backlash from that,
hmm.
in August, he scheduled a press conference where, you guessed it, he had another excuse. He stated that he had been a victim of child abuse and that his comments were
Oh,
a way to cope with it.
well, there you go. Okay. So he's using an excuse, but that's true.
But then
So,
he declined to answer to the identity of his abusers or
mm,
discuss any of the incidents in any detail. And he blew
okay.
off his comments there as a usual blend of British sarcasm and gallows humor, and dismissed it as nothing more than that, and that he does not
Mm,
endorse child molestation.
yeah. For somebody who loves to court controversy and get attention for saying whatever the hell he wants, the fact that he had to back down kind of shows just how he's fully aware of what he's saying at all times. And he knows he's offending people, he knows he's hurting people, may be affecting people, but he knows that this has damaged his brand to such a point that he actually has to say sorry. With the naming thing, I kind of, there's a part of me that thinks, well, if he's talking to people about it, then maybe it might not be best to initially name that person, because that has unforeseen knock-on circumstances to like other people that
Right.
you may not be able to control. So if he wanted to do more about it, then that's fine. But yeah, I don't think naming someone publicly in that
It's
circumstance is great.
it's probably not, but that's
Mm,
2017 and it's
mm,
2023, and
yeah,
I haven't seen anything. But
yeah,
anyway, later he's criticized by people in the media for attending Hollywood boat parties and house parties,
okay.
which he describes as very young um, men were sexually abused, but he
Oof.
failed to report who the abusers were on that,
Oh
and
no.
who he refused to report it to the authorities or identify them during his appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, where they got into it. So he's
Oh
not
god.
talking to the authorities. He's not talking about it in public. He's just saying
He's
that
hinting
it
at it.
happened,
Yeah.
and that's why I behave this way.
Okay. So if he was at these parties, then there's an element of potential culpability in that as well, if that's the case. I have heard of these parties, and I have heard some names, which I won't repeat because I enjoy living in a house. But there are certain specific names that I've heard multiple times over. I had never heard of Milo. So yeah, if he knows something, he should probably cooperate, really, in that circumstance. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and when he was asked about it in an interview with New York Magazine, he said he, quote, didn't check anyone's IDs, and that he had, quote, No idea what the ages of any of those people at the parties were. He also said that they were very young. He assumed they were 16 or 17.
Okay.
But then reiterated that he doesn't advocate for any illegal behavior because 16 or 17 is the age of consent there, apparently.
In where were these parties taking place?
Hollywood, I imagine.
Right. I thought it was 18 in LA.
I don't know. But
anyway, I don't know.
The semantics of it,
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into it. I don't think what he did wasn't exploitation.
Yeah, for sure.
An additional video emerged in November of 2017 where he was on a 2015 episode of Gavin McInnes's show.
Okay.
And he says that child abuse is, quote, really not that big of a deal. You can't let it ruin your life, end quote.
What do you mean you can't let? Oh, right. So his own experience. Okay.
And then he went on to mock the victims of sexual abuse by saying that they were whining, selfish brats for suddenly remembering that they were abused and suddenly deciding it was a problem 20 years after it occurred. Wrong.
Yeah, that's not good. I mean, compartmentalizing his trauma, that's one thing. And if he's coping with it in a healthy way, that's fine. He doesn't seem to be. But, that's his business, and people should be able to develop and handle things in their own way, but you can't say shit like that.
Well, he says something stupider here, too. Wait.
Oh, God.
He also says in this interview that a disproportionate number of pedophiles are homosexual.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Again with this shit.
So we'll talk about it here. In 2011, he described himself as he described gay as a lifestyle choice that that was guaranteed to bring people pain and unhappiness. What? And he reiterated his belief that homosexuality is a sin, and he denounced those, including clergy, who sought to change the church dogma on the issue. In 2017, he married his husband in Hawaii.
Oh, okay. Good.
The same month, he came out against Australian marriage law postal survey and argued that it violates religious freedoms to allow gay people to marry.
But you've just married to a man.
It's safe to say he's all over the map, completely unstable, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of his actions are shining like a glaring light on his self-hatred.
Yeah, there's an element of, you get this, particularly with right-wing commentators and stuff, that it's almost like they're talking about themselves when they're talking about the wrongs and the evils and stuff. Like, they're saying stuff like, are you looking in the fucking mirror right now? Because this is a conversation you should be having with yourself. This sounds like a statement about you,
right?
Not people who are the problem, like you.
I've noticed that a lot.
Yeah. And I mean, this is kind of, he's kind of like the poster child of this specific problem, because you can't marry a guy, which great, all power to you. You can't marry a guy and then come out against gay marriage. It's kind of hypocritical.
A little bit.
Holy shit. Man.
Well, here's a funny one. In 2018, he reported a totally fictitious news story written by a spoof news site as being true. And in his article, or in his reporting of the article, he talked about how the English High Court had ruled that the National Health Service was legally obliged to offer cervical smear tests to men. He said the story exemplified the thinking of those in the feminist clown world, and read out the story then in verbatim. After insisting he had researched the story himself and promised, quote, "This is real. I haven't just made this up," which wasn't
a red flag. Red flag.
It wasn't a lie. He didn't just make it up. It was written by someone else.
Who made it up?
As far as it being real, it was only real in the sense that it was really satire.
Okay, so he took it from a satire site and passed it off as real.
Yes.
Okay. While we're talking about fake news, or I'd hate using that word, there was an interaction I had a very long time ago which involved Breitbart News. So a wrestler, this is when I was a wrestling journalist, a wrestler called Brian Gage, he is jacked out of his fucking mind. He is enormous. Yeah, and like He-Man, toy He-Man jacked. but like, there's no way any of it's natural. I mean, he's a big dude, but fine. He was saying, he was quoting an article, and he was being egged on by this fucking idiot arsehole. I have no problem saying that. Disco Inferno, Glenn Gilberti, who the story was, according to him, 43 or 42 or something like that. Maybe it was less. Maybe it was like 24 or 25% of Americans wanted a gender neutral Santa in the future. And he said, so I interacted with him and his wife and idiot Disco Inferno here about this, and I was like, where have you got this from? And of course they were quoting Breitbart News, and I was like, okay, first of all, that's a big red flag. Who the fuck are you? Why are you believing these people? Is it because it's reinforcing your desired prejudices, which is probably the case? Anyway, I researched it. I looked for the link where this came from. I dug down right the way down, because this is a huge news story. That Breitbart News got it from some rag in Florida, who got it from Florida. Here we go. But that's not the source of it. It came from a British design company who had put together a survey of their users. And the user... okay, sorry, I just want to point out the original quote by Breitbart was 24% of Americans. Okay? 24% of Americans. What's that? That's like 60 million people?
A lot of people.
Something like that. It's a lot of people. Boatloads. They found it from the Florida rag, who found it from the British design company, some really obscure British design company, not even like a FTSE 100, 500 company, just some like place in London that's maybe got like 10 staff or something. They did a survey online where they asked their users, and 1,000 users, about 1,049, I think it was, responded to this survey. Only 40% of their users were American. Most of them were British.
Okay.
And of those 1,049 people, 24% of them wanted a gender neutral Santa. Now, this is quite a modern company. This is like a millennial, kind of middle of the road, kind of third option company. Like, they're very neutral stance, essentially. A very modern metro kind of organization. Gotcha. I don't really know what I'm trying to get at here, but they're very modern. They're not like a traditional company. And 24% of their users wanted a gender neutral Santa. Not 24% of Americans, not even 24% of the 1,000 people who 24% of the 1,000 people who responded, but not even 24% of those were Americans. Right. Because only 40% of the respondents were Americans. So we're talking at most like a couple of hundred people wanted a gender neutral Santa for this design company. This idiot place in Florida got hold of that, turned it into 24% of Americans. Breitbart quoted that as fact. And then you have this wrestler with hundreds of thousands of followers on a massive platform spouting this as country's going to shit. I got it from Breitbart. When I pointed out the original source of the story, he didn't back down. He was like, oh, well, you know, the country's still going to hell. I was like, dude, I've just fucking proven you wrong. This isn't about just swallow your pride and admit you made a mistake based on confirmation bias. And you've got fucking little Disco Inferno in the background. Yeah, you get him, Brian. Yeah. And I was like, fuck all of you. So I blocked them all. I was like, I've had enough. I've proved you wrong. Oops, that was an accident. I've proved you wrong. And you still don't want to believe it because you want to believe that your version of America is under attack. But actually, it was just a fucking tiny design firm. Sorry, I just had to point that out because this is the MO of Breitbart News and all of the organizations in that sphere is they take a granite of a story and they just embellish.
Well, and then they also will link you straight back so that you look like you got to do some deep digging a lot of times to make sure that the research isn't just another site by the same assholes confirming their dumb little thing where they made up statistics on the spot. And people like him need to realize when you've got followers and you've got a voice and you've got a platform, you need to be pretty sure about what you're saying. And when you're provided evidence that you're wrong, if you've got a platform like that, you've got to acknowledge it.
Yeah, exactly. And that research took me 10 minutes. This wasn't fucking, All the President's Men or something like that. This wasn't some fucking spy thriller. This was me Googling it for 10 minutes.
Oh,
and I found the truth. So,
well, yeah. Well, it seems to be common among these spheres, like you said. But back to Milo in
Sorry,
this. I'm almost there. God, this has been a long one. I apologize, everybody.
No,
I hope you like my voice.
I'm enjoying it. It's great. Thank you.
So in August 2019, he serves as the Grand Marshal in Boston for the Straight Pride Parade put on by the Super Happy Fun America group.
Sorry, what? The Super Happy Fun America group?
Yeah. And the Straight Pride Parade, which is a super, like, yay, heteros, which, fine, whatever.
What? What the fuck?
Well, before he got that gig, he tells the Super Happy Fun America organizers that there are no ex-gays. And then right after that, he went on, before serving, he went on to declare on the LifeSite News website that he was an ex-gay and would begin advocating on behalf of improving the public image of gay conversion therapy.
Oh, Jesus.
In June 2021, he announced that he was fundraising for a gay conversion therapy center in Florida.
Of course. Fucking Florida. Sorry, Toasterzoid. This is making me want to join the super fucking depressed parade. That's really good.
So in August of 2021, he claims that he tests positive for COVID-19 and that he used ivermectin, whatever that.
Oh no, that fucking horse suppository shit or whatever it was.
Yeah, that cured him. He didn't have COVID and he didn't do any of that, and he's just an asshole trolling you.
Yeah, who's probably invested in the company and wants to make a bit of money. Yeah.
It should come as no surprise that in 2022 he served as an intern for the Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene's campaign, and then he worked with white nationalist Nick Fuentes and musical artist Kanye West.
Oh my God.
On Ye's 2024 presidential election bid. He became kind of like a PR guy for Kanye.
Well, if that's your PR guy, then I dread to know who your chief of staff is. Is it Joseph Goebbels?
Yeah, right.
Fuck. Jesus.
It bites him later. We'll get to it. Remember earlier this season, I covered Nick Fuentes.
Yes, you did. It was really interesting.
We talked about his dinner with Ye and Trump.
Yes, that's true. Mar-a-Lago.
This guy's the dude that set it up.
Oh, wow. You're in trouble.
He told NBC News that he worked really hard to get the meeting, and then he had Fuentes tag along once he had the meeting. Yeah.
That's a bit insulting.
Yeah.
Come on, buddy. Come on. Keep up.
Well, Trump was pissed. I guess he was blindsided by it.
Right. That's not good.
He says now that, like, screw Trump. That's his new stance on it. And he's turned on him. And his reason is because Trump has, quote, systematically, repeatedly neglected, ignored, and abused the people who love him most and who put him in office. And that kind of behavior comes back to bite you in the end.
I mean, that's true.
Well, he's got something coming back to bite him in the end right here.
Yeah, exactly.
In December of 2022, he was fired from the Yay campaign.
Wow.
Which he described as a mutual conclusion, but others have said he was fired after a series of disastrous media appearances that he set up that saw the candidate praising Hitler.
Yeah, I remember those.
So he may have been responsible for that.
When Alex Jones is trying to rein you in, there's a problem. No, but you don't mean that, Kanye, right? You don't mean that you loved him. No, I loved. Oh my God, what the fuck? And he's wearing like an old sock over his fucking head or something at the same time. What the fuck, with holes cut in them? Oh my God. If there's ever been an advert for off your meds, it's either Gigi Allen, that's a wrestler, like throwing shit around New York and then dying, and it's Kanye West going on an alt-right podcast that's been banned by almost the entire internet going, I love Hitler. What the fuck are you doing? Dude, yeah, no wonder he was fired.
There was an article in the Daily Beast that I came across that I'm going to kind of end this on. It gives us something to look forward to and think about. Will Summer says, something to consider after Milo's firing from the Yee campaign. Milo has a penchant for collecting audio and other materials, compromising materials on his frenemies. He has a drive called The Vault, filled with stuff, and he was even subpoenaed for it during the Charlottesville lawsuit.
Oh my God.
So it's tough to say what's going to happen next. So far, I have to say the life of Milo Yiannopoulos, a British right-wing political commenter and a speech giver who writes and criticizes Islam and feminism and social justice and political
Everyone
correctness.
That isn't him, basically.
Yeah, anything that is
him.
progress.
Yes.
Oh yeah, and himself. Except for having sex with teenagers, he doesn't criticize that.
He's
too much.
Totally fine with that.
I think that puts him, on my list of history's greatest idiots, and I'm looking forward to your score. That's all I got on him so far.
Yeah,
maybe updates.
there probably will be. This is one of those ongoing numbers that we have to keep in mind, along with Elizabeth Holmes, who might be getting an even more final number soon. Because it's been delayed. Her time in prison has been delayed one more time for another appeal, but she's going. Milo. This is such a weird thing to say because I want to be angry, but actually I'm kind of sad about this. I don't really know why. I don't know if it's because I'm an older man now and I just want to sit Milo down and make him a cup of tea and give him a hug and go, "You're all right, mate. It's probably should stop now."
For real.
I just I don't know why. It does make me sad because this feels like another wasted life, career. Who knows? I mean,
he's got time to turn it around.
There's time. He's still so young. I mean, he's only 3 years younger than us. So, but I feel like there is an opportunity here, hopefully, for an element of insight into his meteoric rise through trolling and then continued. I have to keep upping the ante to stay relevant by saying and doing some of the most horrible things you can do in public life without being shot, basically.
Right. Which I'm surprised hasn't happened. Not that I'm calling for it.
No, God,
no violence
we're
ever.
Not. No, we're not.
Anywhere.
No, absolutely not. I don't know if he has been assaulted. I'm amazed he hasn't. There's a lot of thing about we're living in an era of kayfabe where people say things they know are horrible and deliberately horrible. Trump, Kanye West, Milo Yiannopoulos, all of these people playing horrible alt-right characters, even your favorite Fox News anchors who have been exposed by private texts and emails saying, "My God, Trump is out of his fucking mind. He's out of his tree," and then going online going, "We need to support the president. He's absolutely right." And then they get off the air and they're like, "Why the fuck are we saying this? Why does Rupert Murdoch make us say this?" Look, just they know what they're fucking doing. Every single one of them. They aren't speaking the truth. They know they're lying. They know they're pissing people off and dividing them, and they know why they're doing it. It's a grand distraction. And Milo is one of the, even though he's young, he's one of the kind of the grandfathers of the current era we're in, and the era of bullshit and horrible quotes and just evil stuff. And it's snowballing to the point where legislation is now being written in America that is outlawing the LGBT community. Really horrible ways as well. So let's not lose sight of the fact that Milo is one of the Mount Rushmore of alt-right fury, arseholery, basically. And I am sad. I do hope Milo, as he grows, if he grows, looks back on some of his past behavior and words and thinks, maybe I should have been a better human being. Maybe I could have just approached it from a point of view as I wouldn't like somebody saying this to my face. Maybe he does. Maybe he gets off on the rush of endorphins he gets from feeling right in arguments with complete strangers, because that is a legitimate addiction. Just spend half an hour in a modern warfare lobby. You'll fucking find plenty of people who are addicted to that. So, I mean, scoring wise, it's got to be high, right? I mean, he hasn't killed anyone, but this man he's like the archangel of just shit everywhere he goes. It's just a swirling storm of chaos and horribleness. So, Milo, please just fucking chill the fuck out, man, and calm down and just do a little introspection and maybe try and do some good. It's got to be a 97.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take that.
And it's just his impact is so immense. He is, like I said, he's one of the pillars of this horrible movement that we will look back on in 20, 30, 40, 50 years time as one of the darkest times since, the Industrial Revolution in human existence.
I've been saying this a lot kind of recently too. When I came up in school, in all the textbooks, you'd see the pictures and read the accounts of white people protesting and throwing rocks at a little black girl that's going to a desegregated school.
Yeah.
You're all going to be those people in the new textbooks.
Exactly. And they don't see it. They're in it in the moment because in a certain way it's earning them money and notoriety. But down the line, your legacy is 16 million tons of human excrement and then your body underneath it all. And it's time to get out.
Yeah.
Learn some empathy. If you are a psychopath, get help. Because a lot of these people are. And just try and do better by the people around you that you actually love. This man, I'm assuming he's still married. I don't know about his or his husband's views. It's wrong to pigeonhole people as having specific views because they're members of a certain community. But I do hope that he is at least happy in his life, because this is all very sad. That you have to have a vault of dirt on people is telling that you're probably not in a good line of work. Really,
right. There's so much gross about everything.
Yeah,
I think the only thing that's not gross about him is the fact that he came out and was open for a minute about his homosexuality.
And actually, I mean, I know he says he's whatever the fuck he's thinking now. Milo, just try and find yourself again. When you were out and honest about yourself, then that's fine. I mean, maybe he was confused about that. I don't know, but I just hope he finds the truth about himself soon and accepts it, because it sounds like the world is copying the side effects of him not really knowing who he is.
Right.
And that's really sad. Anyway, Milo Yiannopoulos, 97. Just
nice.
Get your shit together, man. You're making me sad. So away from Milo and that just almost like comic level of insanity, I'd like to move on to something a little bit lighter, but still really fucking horrible. In a financial sense, I think. So this is more, and let's be honest, finances. Like, I got paid a little late this month. There's nothing scarier than like not having money when you have bills going out. So it's still horrible and scary. But I'd like to now tell you the story of Crazy Eddie Antar, who's one of the most famous or infamous. He's so famous, he's infamous retailers in American history. Eddie Antar's grandparents, Murad and Terah Antar, who were Syrian Jews, relocated to Brooklyn, New York from Aleppo, Syria. Murad and Terah worked in their market stall alongside Arabs, including Egyptians, other Syrians, and Turks as well. Eddie's father, Sam Antar, was a retailer, and it was no surprise to the family that Eddie also became a retailer. The predecessor to Crazy Eddie was a consumer electronics shop called Sight and Sound. It was property of ERS Electronics, a company owned by Sam M. Antar, Eddie himself, and Eddie's cousin Ronnie Gindi, I think it is. Anyway,
close enough.
Yeah, there's something like that. So, Sight and Sound, located on Kings Highway in Brooklyn, began operation in 1969 and offered electronics at regular prices. Due to his aggressive sales techniques, Eddie quickly became known as Crazy Eddie. But within 18 months of opening, the shop, as well as Eddie and Ronnie, were nearly bankrupt. That did not take long.
That escalated quickly.
Very quickly. Yeah. Eddie surprisingly bought out his cousin Gindy's 1/3 ownership stake of Sight and Sound, and Sam, his father, is it his father? Sam and Antar Eddie. Yes, Sam, the father, retained his 1/3 stake, but left the day-to-day operations to Eddie. Big mistake. In 1971, the Sight and Sound store on Kings Highway, was renamed Crazy Eddie. Eddie continued his sales tactic with the renamed Crazy Eddie shop, but this time was successful. Aggressive selling in the 70s it was a very new thing. We're coming out of the 60s. The idea of a gentleman, like salesman and experience of selling, like it's kind of dying out. There's an element of machismo coming into the way that people sell stuff, and he is kind of leading the charge in New York. It's a very Brooklyn, New York thing. Like, hey, you want this? You know, like it's almost confrontational at times. So,
right. I imagine he's like one of the characters from like Used Cars.
Oh yeah,
where he's a salesman.
He's like, I'm here to close.
Yeah,
God damn it, always be closing. Yeah, he's one of those guys. Eventually, Eddie closed the location and relocated the business to a bigger shop, just a few blocks from Sight and Sound's old location. In 1973, Antar opened the second Crazy Eddie location in Syosset, New York. Syosset. Syosset?
Never heard of it. Sounds right.
Yeah, we'll go with that. A third following in 1975, located in Greenwich Village. That was probably very expensive to set up. That year, Anton established a corporate main office on Coney Island Avenue in Brooklyn. For a second, I thought it was on Coney Island, and I was about to say, is it located adjacent to or in Astroland? Because either way, that'd be really funny. Where's my head office? Oh, it's in a fucking amusement park. Yeah, that works. By 1977, 2 more stores had been opened. One located on East Fordham Road in the Bronx, and the other being the first Crazy Eddie location in New Jersey, located on the south side of Route 17 in Paramus. By 1971, Crazy Eddie was operating 10 locations, one of which was a new flagship location on East 57th Street on Manhattan's Upper East Side. He's doing super well, despite going nearly bankrupt 18 months into operating.
Yeah, well, hey, kind of maybe amazing. It was the other people holding him down.
And maybe it was. Maybe it was his cousin and his father. Joe says, I don't ever do the Jersey accent again, please.
Can I do
Why, you're not allowed in my Jersey? What the fuck was that? That was actual Jersey in the UK. Sorry, I think I've missed out a chunk here. No, I haven't. So moving on to the advertising. Crazy Eddie stores were famous in the New York metro area for their advertisements, which featured Jerry Carroll as the star. The relationship between the two sides began in 1972 when Carroll was a radio disc jockey known as Dr. Jerry at WPIX FM. Antar was paid for an on-air ad, and Carroll read the chain slogan, "His prices are insane," in an exaggerated and frenetic manner. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold coming. When Antar heard Carroll's delivery, he telephoned the radio station and told Carroll to say the line the same way every time he read it. So he's like, he spotted something, it works, make it into a thing. And that's a very smart decision. There's a lot of things. Sorry, what?
I said, boom, gimmick.
Gimmick, exactly. There's a lot of things wrong with Crazy Eddie Antar. But if there's one thing this man knows, it's what works in terms of psychology of sales and branding. This man gets it so much. In 1975, Carroll began appearing in television commercials for Crazy Eddie. For most of the next 15 years, Carroll performed commercials in the same frenetic manner he had for radio. One of the most memorable promotions for Crazy Eddie's annual Christmas in August sale, where he would dress up in a Santa suit and do the commercial while stagehands threw fake snowballs at him. The snowballs were probably made of receipts that Eddie was shredding behind closed doors, to be honest with you. Yeah, we'll get to that. Carroll also had a trademark look in each commercial, wearing a blue suit with a light blue turtleneck shirt in almost all of his appearances, even during later years, or asbestos. Yeah, that's probably what the snowballs were made out of, actually. Yeah, thinking about it.
It was the 70s.
Yeah, it's the 70s. Like, it's crunchy. Carroll even appeared in a Spanish language Crazy Eddie advertisement, though he did not have a speaking role. Instead, his appearance consisted of him holding a radio to his ear as he walked behind the commercial spokesman, stopping only to wave at the camera several times. Well, he got paid, so good on you, guy. Weird. You got equity. Well done. During the 1980s, this is insane. More than 7,500 unique radio and television ads were broadcast in the tri-state area. That's a lot of adverts in a 10-year period.
He was all over the place.
He was
couldn't go nowhere without seeing Crazy Eddie.
Crazy Eddie was almost like a cultural touchstone in the 80s. I knew about it, and I'm from the UK, and I didn't go to like America until it was like 1990, I guess. So like we're well past, Crazy Eddie's heyday at this point, but I was aware of Crazy Eddie. It was a trope at that point.
That is, yeah, that's good marketing though, for it to get that far.
Very good to weave yourself into Americana. That's about as good as advertising gets, really. That's where Phineas and Ferb are from. Didn't know that. Showing your age there, Toasted Side. That's really cool.
Weird little fact: Phineas and Ferb. Wait, yeah, that's right. The theme song for that is written by the dude from Bowling for Soup, who
no way
is one of my favorite punk bands. Pop punk, comedy punk.
Yeah, I was gonna say because that was man, they were huge for a while. That's amazing. I didn't know that. That's really
I hope I got
cool.
that right. I could totally be wrong, but I know he did one of those shows.
Sure, it's like the South Park theme tune being made by Primus.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
That was really cool. Carol. So Carol also had a trademark. Look, no, I've already done that. They had 7,500 unique radio and television ads were broadcast in the tri-state area. Carol's acting became so identified with the company that many people actually thought he was Crazy Eddie. Crazy Eddie even made a commercial to this effect with Carol as a Superman-styled superhero named Crazy Eddie. Of course he was. Also, the voice actor Perry the Platypus also voiced Gravermind in Halo. Yeah, you'll find voice actors do numerous roles across different things. I mean, I'm how many different presidents at this point? It's a lot, really.
I do not
real
many
and
roles.
fake presidents. Real and fake presidents that also happen to be actors. So the Superman-styled Crazy Eddie commercial. Warner Communications, the parent company of the distributor for Superman movies, found the commercial to be problematic and sued the chain, trying to stop them. I love that at some point in time, Warner had a problem with someone behaving badly, because it sure as fuck isn't the case right now.
No.
If your name is Ezra Miller, you can do whatever the fuck you want. You are not getting fired. At the time, Warner was also the parent company of Atari, the video game company, of course, and its largest customer for systems and games was Crazy Eddie. Therefore, in retaliation for the lawsuit, Eddie said that if Warner was going to sue for the commercial, he would stop selling Atari products in his store. The suit was dropped.
Ooh, yep, there you go. When was this?
This is 1980. It doesn't say, actually. I'm guessing early 80s.
Okay. So Nintendo's just coming out. That might have been
Nintendo. Yeah, the NES is still a couple of years away at this point, I think, maybe. So Atari is still, they've had the fall, but they're still a name. So
people are out there still playing Pong.
Yes, people are still out there doing Pac-Man and terrible ports of E.T. that haven't been buried in the desert. So I mean, Eddie, well done. He made Warner Brothers back down. That's pretty intense. The commercials were so memorable that HBO's news parody series, Not Necessarily the News, created a parody television commercial featuring as a caricature of Oliver North from the infamous Iran-Contra affair, known as Crazy Ollie, selling used weapons at bargain prices.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Kudos to them.
Yeah, if you don't know, Ollie North is essentially the patsy who took the fall for Reagan and Bush when they were caught selling arms to Iran so that they could funnel drug money to the Contras.
Yeah.
Fuck me, that was complicated. And he did the time. He got all the blame, and then he ended up with a cushy Fox News job
as you do.
Of course, as you do. You help out a Republican president, you're going to end up working at Fox News for several $100,000 a year. An early Eddie's commercial parody appeared on NBC's Saturday Night Live on January the 22nd, 1977. Man, that is an early one. In the Dan Aykroyd creation Crazy Ernie. Carol and the commercials became significantly cultural during the 1980s, with the commercials sometimes appearing in the background of contemporary motion pictures. An example is the frightening first sight of a television receiver with a typical Jerry Carroll commercial on screen by Daryl Hannah's mermaid character in Ron Howard's 1984 classic comedy Splash, which also had a very young Tom Hanks in it.
I need to go back and watch that. I need to go back and watch a lot of old movies.
Yeah, if you watch Splash, you'll also see another very young actor. Eugene Levy is in Splash. He's
Oh,
like,
nice.
he's about 19. He's fucking so young. So yeah, go back and watch it. It's actually not bad. There was a whole series of films like that came out around that time. So you had that. You had like Mannequin as well, which was
Oh,
another weird one.
yeah, that
Weird
was weird.
Science. Yeah,
That one was cool.
that was cool. Yeah.
I went back and watched 16 Candles the other day, and
Oh
holy
yeah.
crap, it's like, dude, you can't. Wow, the way that
Yeah.
people were is
I know.
shocking.
Really horrible. The John Hughes films, some of them not aged well. There's a lot of things in there you're like, that's probably illegal. Wow. Yeah. So anyway, back to Crazy Eddie. Sorry, there's playing up to his character in the Crazy Eddie chain. He dressed in his usual black suit and blue turtleneck, standing among racks of electronic equipment while sampling the company's product and then singing its praise in French. This is a French yogurt commercial that the yogurt brand wanted Crazy Eddie in their commercial for yogurt.
Huh.
So a character from an advert is so famous it's appearing in other commercials. That doesn't happen.
That's like, you got an advertising character franchise.
Yep.
It's
crazy.
It's like what are those guest appearances of the new superhero movie guy that's coming out showing up in one of the old superhero movie guys that's out that you're watching?
You have a multiverse of product placement and advertisement here. It's crazy. That's really, I mean, that's a sign of success when the French are like, we know of your advert. We'd like you to be in a yogurt commercial, even though you are not a real person. We want you to be in it. That's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Crazy Eddie was also known to have in-store appearances by notable rock bands, including all 4 members of Queen in their Manhattan location on Tuesday, July the 27th, 1982. Prior to that evening's performance at Madison Square Garden. So they're due to sell out MSG and they just show up at Crazy Eddie's store. That's you've made it, right?
Oh yeah, that's
like
cool.
Studio 52, 57, what was it?
I don't remember.
Studio 54. 54, thank you. So when you've got famous celebrities hanging out in your fucking electronics store, that's kind of crazy, really.
Yeah. Good press. Well, if it gets out.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And actually, Queen, kind of the ideal band for Crazy Eddie's thing, really, because it's so flamboyant and big and loud. It's like, it's perfect cross promotion. They also, so here we go. Now let's get to the shit. Almost from the beginning, Crazy Eddie's management engaged in various forms of fraud. The Antars deliberately falsified their books to reduce or eliminate their taxable income. Sometimes they didn't pay tax at all.
There's somebody that just did that.
I know. It seems to be a theme. They also paid employees off the books and regularly skimmed thousands of dollars in cash earned at the shops. For every $5 Crazy Eddie reported as income, $1 was taken by the Antars. 1979, the Antars, sorry, I've got a bit of a sniff, began depositing much of this money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, in Israeli bank accounts. The Antar family skimmed an estimated $3 to $4 million per year at the height of their fraud in one offshore bank account. This is just one of their offshore bank accounts. The family deposited more than $6 million between 1980 and 1983. You're going to hear this a lot because I've done inflation calculations for this. The $6 million for that 3-year period is the equivalent of 18.1 million nowadays. This is just one account that has $18.1 million in it. So
I've got to become a better financial criminal.
Yeah, we really do. Like trying to claim stuff back on tax. Apparently, you can just skim and no one will notice for years. So
yeah, they notice me every year. Give me money, they say.
Yeah, I'll just do what Crazy Eddie did. Won't give you shit. By 1983, it was becoming more and more difficult to hide the millions of illicit dollars. The Antars decided the way to cover up the growing fraud was to take the company public.
Yeah, let's get the SEC involved. That'll make it easier.
Let's open our books to potential investors. They'll love that. Yeah, that's a way to cover up the fraud. In preparation, Eddie initiated a scheme in 1979 to skim less each year, since more income was actually being reported. This had the effect of showing drastically increased profit margins. while the company's actual profits, taking into account skimmed profits from 1980 to 1983, increased approximately 13%, reported profits increased nearly 171%.
Holy
That's
moly! Who does he
fucking
think? Big
stupid.
oil?
Yeah.
He thinks. Sorry.
I mean, how can anybody, anything over 8% a year, should raise red flags?
Well,
If you're consistent, yeah.
It's like, where did you get that? What'd you do different?
I know. You're selling used electronics. It's the last thing they'd expect. Yeah, take the company public, so to side. Yeah, we attack at the break of daylight. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Despite the misgivings of people closely associated with Crazy Eddie, the company held its initial public offering on September the 13th, 1984. Its symbol on the New York stock market was CRZY, which is just awesome. If that happened in this day and age, I guarantee you Reddit would be investing in that stock as
that's a
meme
stock all day
right there. Shares of the company.
What date was that? September 13th?
September 13th, 1984.
I'm just seeing if it's a Friday the 13th. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. You can continue.
That would be ironic, but yeah. Shares of the company sold initially for $8. But by early 1986, Crazy Eddie stock was trading at more than $75 a share.
Jesus.
That is insane.
Wow.
Yeah. He's a lot of money.
You didn't even need to steal. He's doing good.
No. This is the thing. You can stop now, Eddie. You are legit. People have invested millions. Just use this money and reinvest in the business. No, he's addicted. Eddie recruited his cousin, Sam E. Antar, known as Sammy, to assist in the company with its fraud. Sammy earned a degree in accounting in 1980 and served his apprenticeship with Penn and Horowitz, Crazy Eddie's auditors. In 1986, he was named chief financial officer of the company. Sammy was informed, he was told that there were $3 million deficit from the previous year's inventory fraud that needed to be hidden. So, hey, buddy, welcome to your new post. Hide this, please.
Yeah. Hope you learned some stuff over there.
Yeah. I'm glad you've had good schooling. Now let's put it to good use. We're going to fuck everyone over. Additionally, he was instructed to find ways to show a 10% growth in sales. One of Sammy's major schemes was a money laundering operation, later known as the Panama Pump. That sounds like a strain right there.
It does.
Yeah, that sounds like something that you could definitely get from a local dealer. Money that the Antars had deposited in Israeli banks was transferred to banks in Panama. These accounts opened were opened under false names, and then the money was drafted back to Crazy Eddie stores, largely used to inflate some store sales for the company. So they're taking money out, pumping it back in as sales, so they can get more.
Sounds like they're doing it like on paper, though. Shouldn't, if you launder money, it start out as cash or turn back into cash? Or
they only seem to work in cash. They don't seem to keep records. Like, they're paying everyone off the books in cash. This seems like a mostly cash business, I guess, because like it's like secondhand goods. So like you're buying it off people for cheap, and then you're reselling it again at a markup. Like, there's going to be a lot of cash involved in that.
That makes sense, though, even because when I was doing retail and selling shoes in the 90s in the mall, we paid cash out of the till to the employees. So
exactly,
but they still had pay stubs.
Oh yeah, you would still get pay stubs, but those pay stubs could have said anything, really. Oh, yeah. If you'd messed around. But yeah, anyway. Additionally, as a public company, Eddie, Sammy, and others engaged in increasing amounts of inventory fraud to increase reported profits and inflate the value of Crazy Eddie stock. For the fiscal year ending March 1st, 1985, Crazy Eddie falsified inventories by $3 million. The next financial year, that amount increased to between $10 and $12 million. Wow.
Jesus.
It's getting out of control at this point, I think, lads. Only months after Crazy Eddie's IPO, Antar's marriage to his wife, Debbie, became unstable. You're going to love this. As a result of frequent arguments, he then commenced an affair with a much younger woman, also called Debbie. So that's fucking weird.
Hey, you don't have to remember another name.
Yeah, like if he's oh Debbie, like she's not going to be suspicious,
right?
So
yeah, this all sounds like parts of different mobster movies.
it really does. And I mean, I don't know for certain. I know that a book was released last year about Crazy Eddie. This really needs to be turned into a film. This is, again, Netflix. Come on, keep giving us this money, right? This is a surefire hit. There are so many parts to this, and it just gets weirder and weirder.
All of my filmmaker friends that listen to this, I'm telling you right now, we're giving you some gold here.
Yeah, we really are. And not the kind of gold that is off the books. This is actual gold, not Crazy Eddie gold. The trysting pair were caught by Eddie's wife and sister on New Year's Eve 1984. There's another plot for you. Crazy Eddie's troubles began almost immediately afterwards. The scam had relied extensively on family members helping keep the appearances that it was an immensely successful business. By 1987, Sammy Antar's goal was no longer to show greater profitability, but rather to disguise previous frauds. During the fiscal year of 1987, they falsified inventories between $22.5 and $28 million.
1985 money?
1987 money.
Money.
It's like 65 million, something like that. Crazy money. In addition, Eddie booked $20 million in phony debit memos or chargebacks to vendors that reduced accounts payable. So he's doing tax fraud as well. Yeah. As the company fraud became more difficult to disguise, the public perception of Crazy Eddie as a commercial success began to change. By October 1986, the company stock had decreased to $17.50 per share, down from $75.
That's a drop.
That's a big drop.
Like during a meme stock.
like a meme stock, exactly. It's a pump and dump. During December, Eddie announced his resignation as president and CEO. In April of 1987, it was announced that Eddie had in fact retained his role as president, but had dismissed, amongst others, his father. So he lied about resigning and stayed and just sacked everyone. So
okay,
what a class act this guy is.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm leaving.
Yeah.
But really, all of you are leaving. I'm staying.
Yeah, I'm leaving. I'm not going nowhere. It's Leonardo DiCaprio in The Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh, God.
But by then, Eddie Antar had already cashed out of his share of Crazy Eddie stock, worth between $25 and $30 million, or $72 million in today's money. So he's got that on top of all of the money he's been skimming for the last 20 years.
Perfect time to walk away.
It really is. Run for the hills. Venezuela calling. By the spring of 1987, the company's stock was less than $10 a share. Additionally, earnings decreased 20% from the previous year. The franchise did show a 34% sale increase, but this was mainly the result of 13 new stores opening. Oof, that's not a good time to be expanding.
Oh,
my God. In May 1987, Eddie began proceedings to make the company a privately held company again, seeking out Canadian investment banker Samuel Bellsberg as a partner. As this was going on, another electronics discounter entered the picture and started buying up shares in Crazy Eddie. The man was Elias Zinn, who was based in Houston and ran his own businesses across Texas.
Okay.
So this is your Texan equivalent of Crazy Eddie, which is, I don't know, Loopin' Larry or something like that.
Zippy Zinn.
Yeah, Zippy Zinn. Zinn eventually partnered with management consultant Victor Palmieri's backing to purchase $17.5 million worth of Crazy Eddie stock, which represented just 7.5% of the outstanding shares. This eventually resulted in Zinn and Palmieri with controlling interest in the company, which enabled them to initiate a hostile takeover. Once rumors of the takeover started, financial analysts began to examine more closely Crazy Eddie's financial situation. What they discovered was that while most stockholders of the company had lost money since 1984, Eddie had sold 6.5 million shares worth $74 million, or again, adjusted for inflation, $196.5 million in today's money.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
he's at nearly $250 billion at this point in today's money. A flurry of stockholder lawsuits were filed against the Antar money as a result of this. Yeah. Eddie and Sammy Antar briefly attempted to counter offer Zinn's takeover, but Zinn quickly toppled that because they didn't have any money. The Antar's bid was ended, and Zinn became the new owner of Crazy Eddie on November the 6th, 1987. His first act, he immediately dismissed the entire Antar family from all the important jobs except, like, clean the loos.
Well, there you go. That'll fix it.
Get them the fuck out now. Don't even let them pick up their jackets. Throw them through the window. When Palmieri's financial analysts completed their preliminary audit a few weeks after the takeover, they estimated that Crazy Eddie's inventory was short by something like $40 to $50 million. The final figure was actually $80 million, or $212 million in today's money. Just stuff that didn't exist, but was on the books. That's...
Man,
yeah,
we're getting to like Powerball numbers worth of stuff that doesn't exist.
We're getting to like GDP changing percentage numbers here. By June 1988, Crazy Eddie's suppliers were demanding the liquidation of the company so they could recover money owed to them. In 1989, they got their wish. The closing of Crazy Eddie began in March 1989 as the company shuttered 17 of its 43 stores. On June 6th, 1989, Crazy Eddie was served with a petition by 5 of his creditors who had not been paid a total of $860,000 they were owed, which sought to have the company forced into bankruptcy. The company originally planned to fight the petition and file for dismissal, but 15 days later, Crazy Eddie voluntarily filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. Company president and CEO Peter Marticello cited problems created by the creditor's position, which he termed as ill-advised, but said business would be conducted as usual at the remaining 26 stores, and that Crazy Eddie was still a strong franchise. Yes, it's a strong franchise, like Pan Am and Toys R Us and Enron. Will go on forever.
Unbeatable.
Never ending. Crazy Eddie, 96 episodes. It's never, not going to happen. The company vowed to stay in business, but despite Martocello's, I beg your pardon, assertions, Crazy Eddie continued to falter. By the autumn of 1989, the chain was down to 18 remaining locations, and sales were continuing to decrease, and stores were unable to keep items stocked due to a lack of supplier interest in the company, because who wants to fucking deal with these people?
Well, yeah, when you're not getting paid.
Yeah. When you're out like nearly $1 million, that's not going to happen. Finally, on October the 2nd, 1989, Crazy Eddie's bankruptcy was converted from Chapter 11 to Chapter 7, and the company began a total liquidation immediately thereafter. By the end of November 1989, the last 18 Crazy Eddie stores were shuttered, and the chain, which only 5 years earlier had been one of the most lucrative retail chains in the United States and the world, had ceased to exist. In the meantime, a longtime Crazy Eddie associate, Arnie Spindler, who quit the company after Eddie dismissed his father, Sam, brothers Alan and Mitchell, and others after a family dispute, had provided investigators with information concerning Crazy Eddie's fraudulent business practices. Spindler implicated Eddie and Sammy, but stated the rest of the family was innocent, though subpoenas were served to the entire Antar family. They're not.
Really? They worked there and knew all of that and skimmed themselves, but they didn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, he's trying to put the blame on these two guys, but really, like, everyone knew, and some of them were directly involved, so that's bullshit. Based on information gathered during its investigation, the SEC charged Eddie Antar with securities fraud and illegal insider trading on September the 6th, 1989. In January 1990, a federal district judge ordered Antar to repatriate more than $50 million that he had transferred illegally to Israel, or $132 million in today money.
God.
Fuck.
He's got to be up over $1 billion total now, right?
We're nearly there. We're nearly there. He was also ordered to pay the court to. He was also ordered to appear in court to explain what happened with the money. When he failed to appear, an arrest warrant was issued. Eddie surrendered to U.S. Marshals a week later, but was released. and ordered to appear at a second hearing. So they're like, I forgot this bit of paperwork. Can we come back a week later? Like, yeah, sure, go home. Yeah, you're not going to run. You're not going to run. When he failed to appear at the hearing, a second arrest warrant was issued and his assets were frozen. Why did they let him go? He's already run once.
It seems to be a common theme among law enforcement. They just
seem to think the white collar guys, they're not going to run.
Right?
You know, they're not real criminals. But yeah, Eddie fled to Israel using a fake passport and the alias David Jacob Levy Cohen.
Good Lord.
And purchased it. So, sorry?
I said, good Lord. I thought you were going to say Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt.
Almost. And purchased a townhouse in the city of Yavne, I think it is. Now, this is where I hadn't disclosed this before this kind of thing with the same team that did The Death of Stalin. Yeah, man, that is a great film. If you haven't seen The Death of Stalin, it's written by the guy who did Veep and The Thick of It. It's one of the funniest films I've seen in years. It's pretty great. Brilliant. Eddie's connection to me. Now, I have a kind of a personal-ish connection to Eddie through a set of circumstances. When I was much younger, I used to listen to a lot of Futurama, watch a lot of Futurama, I should say. And I was so obsessed with it that I listened to the director's commentaries. And in one of these director's commentaries, the co-creator, David Cohen, who's called David X Cohen because there was already a David Cohen in SAG and he had to add an X to his name. He just let slip what his email address was. So I was like, fuck it. I'm going to email David Cohen. And I did. And the first thing, my opening line, because he talked about the fact that Crazy Eddie fled the country and used the name David Cohen to hide out. And people had knocked on his door and they were like, excuse me, are you a retailer who's stolen $1 billion? No, I'm just a college student. No, thanks though. So I emailed David Cohen thinking I'm never going to get a response. And my opening gambit was me asking in the email. I was like, first of all, huge fan. Thank you so much for Futurama. It's meant so much to me. And then I was like, I just want to make sure, have I got the right David Cohen, or have I got the one who's on the run from the law? And I got a reply from David Cohen. And the first part of the reply was, shh, they haven't found me yet. The other guy's a decoy. It's amazing. And I had 2 email conversation with David Cohen, just a really lovely guy. And I was just a college student at the time. So if David X Cohen ever hears this, thank you for replying. Thank you to you for replying to like 21-year-old me who was obsessed with Futurama and thought it was the greatest show on earth. And for a time, that thing, the show Futurama, like season 2 and 3, that knocked lumps off of everything around it. It was brilliant.
It was a good show.
It was a great show. So yeah, I had a conversation with David Cohen. So that's my relation to Crazy Eddie. I spoke to someone who was mistaken for him when he fled to Israel and changed his name. After Eddie fled the country, Sammy offered to testify for federal prosecutors in exchange for immunity. His own brother has.
Sammy always testifies.
Yeah, it's always that brother. It's always the Sammy or the Fredo or the it's always that brother. Sammy pleaded guilty to 3 felonies. He avoided jail time in exchange for his testimony, however, and was instead sentenced to 6 months of house arrest. That's pretty fucking cushy. 1,200 hours of community service, 3 years of probation, also very cushy. Sammy's a snitch. Yeah, he fucking is. Dirty.
That's a good title for a movie.
Sammy's a snitch. That is a great title for a movie.
Take it. Fine. Dibs.
We got it. And 3 years probation, and was levied more than $10,000 in fines, which actually very light. As of 2009, so this is quite old information, Sammy was an advisor for government agencies and businesses investigating fraud. So he's done Catch Me If You Can.
Aha.
Essentially, he's like, I was a terrible human. Now let me work for the government and help them find other terrible humans.
But really, he's not helping them find other terrible humans. He's showing them how to do it so they can get away with it
This
too.
is what I would do. This is how I would do it. Therefore, you should look for this. Eddie was arrested in June 1992 on federal racketeering conspiracy charges and was extradited to the United States in January 1993. He pled not guilty. His trial began in June 1993 and was prosecuted jointly by U.S. attorneys Paul Wiseman and Michael Chertoff. I'm not sure why that's relevant. I've just included
Sounded familiar, that first one. But...
maybe, yeah. On July 20th, Eddie was found guilty of 17 charges of fraud. His brother Mitchell was found guilty of 3 counts and acquitted on 2, and Eddie was sentenced to 12.5 years in prison. Yeah. The Antar's lawyers immediately filed an appeal, which succeeded in April 1995. So 3 years later, 2 years later, I apologize, when a federal appeals panel agreed with their contention that the judge presiding over the trial was biased towards their clients. I guess against his clients, but okay. Chertoff, calling Eddie the Darth Vader of capitalism, vowed to begin a new trial. That's a great name. If you're going to prison, being known as the Darth Vader of capitalism will get you some friends, I guess.
I would hope.
Yeah, you would hope you avoid trouble with that. Eddie Antar eventually pleaded guilty to federal fraud charges in May 1996. In February 1997, he was sentenced to 8 years in prison. He was also ordered to pay, here it comes, more than $150 million in fines. That's just fines. In addition to more than $1 billion in judgments against him resulting from various civil suits. $1.15 billion of fraud.
Wow.
That's a lot of fraud.
That is a lot of money. And I can't help it, though. I'm hearing Dr. Evil say it. And I know he says 1 million.
1.1 billion. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, it's Lorne Michaels, isn't it? That's who Dr. Evil is. Just do Lorne Michaels.
Mike Myers.
Yeah, but Mike Myers was doing a Lorne Michaels impression. That's who he based Dr. Evil on. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
There's a few people who do Lorne Michaels' impressions. It's really funny. Efforts to recover additional money from the Antar family on behalf of defrauded stockholders were completed in 2012. So, unbelievably, in this case, it looks like almost everyone got their money back, which, given the amount of money it was, that's impressive.
Hell yeah. God, the people in that payday loan thing, nobody got shit back.
I know. It seems like the more time has gone by, the less money people get back when they go for libel or sorry, what's the word?
Fraud.
Fraud charges for what's the word when they're in non-criminal court stuff. It's gone from my mind.
Civil court.
Thank you. Yeah, there we got there in the end. On September the 10th, 2016, Eddie Antar died at the age of 68. A funeral home in Ocean Township, New Jersey, confirmed the death. Although Antar had been suffering from liver cancer, an official cause was not given. CNBC commentator and journalist Herb Greenberg remarked that Antar's death was the end of an era. I don't know, man. I mean, rich businessmen are still fucking scamming people out of millions of dollars today. That era continues. They're just less brazen than Eddie was.
Yeah, well, I almost assume that everything that he did, every one of those other assholes is doing, but better.
They're just doing it with different language. That's all they're doing. They're doing it with better suits and smarter language. That's all that is. Sure. And let me tell you about my crypto. Yeah, let me tell you. And then and all these words come out that mean nothing other than I'm going to take your money. So it's Eddie Antar is kind of an amazing person. He knew an awful lot about successful branding and stuff, but also as good as he was at branding, he was just as good at conning people. So I have to ask, what do you think of crazy Eddie Antar?
Ah, man, well, he gets idiot points extra for going public and then taking it back private. Why did you think that nobody was going to look at that?
Yeah, someone's going to notice eventually.
Yeah, and especially when you're stealing billions of dollars, even if it is just a little bit at a time.
Yeah,
it's
People will notice these things.
And everybody got their money back, though, so then I got to take away 80 points because nobody was really super hurt by it.
Yeah, I guess like the immediate like impact on their life during that time, because that's a scary thing to lose all that money as an investor,
That's
right?
true.
So,
that's true.
You got it back, so it's just that anguish in that period in time. But yeah, man,
I lose so much money as an investor, though, that I don't have any sympathy for people. You just suck like me at picking them. Sorry. Man, I'm gonna go because he was so popular and influenced so much. I think there was like the Carol character that played the crazy Eddie person. Like you said, they inspired all kinds of stuff, showed up in those movies. I imagine perhaps he was the bassist for what's her face's name in Friends, the king, the mattress king.
The mattress king in Friends, the husband of that Janice, was it?
There it is. I could not remember it, man.
that oh Christ. Yeah, and like any number of other like parodies of that crazy Eddie trope. It is an actual trope now as a result of this guy.
And that's why I feel comfortable giving him a 78.
That's a fair score. Ironically, around about the time that his scams were really kicking off, 78. So wow, yeah, he's such an interesting character, and I was kind of struggling a little bit on who to do, and he's one of those people that I thought about and then just sort of siloed at the back of my mind and forgotten about, and then I was like, yeah, I know he stole some money, but I wasn't aware of how much, and then I looked into it. I was like, holy shit, this is like. The budget for Connecticut for a year or something. This is crazy money.
Loads of it. Yeah. For real.
I couldn't believe that he got away. And what also the stupidity of like the court system to let him go after he's run once. What on earth are you thinking?
Also, our justice system and law enforcement gets an 80 on the idiot scale from me.
For sure, yeah. But also in that situation, like they already know where you siloed your money, right? You know that they know that you've got it in Israel. They know that you've been funneling it through Panama back into your business. Why would you then run to Israel? That is the first place they're going to look.
Yeah. Well, where's his money? Yeah, let's look there.
Yeah, let's look there. That's probably the most likely place. No, you go the opposite way, right? You go somewhere where they wouldn't think to look for you.
Venezuela, Peru.
Venezuela, a non-extradition country. You go there. Right, so yeah, we don't spend shit on Connecticut. Wow, well, there's a lot of money in Connecticut. It doesn't really need help. So, but yeah, that's crazy Eddie Antar, the man who sold shitty TVs for knockdown insane prices, but also stole everyone's fucking money. And Milo Yiannopoulos, who, man, one of our highest scoring idiots.
Yeah.
Ever. Yeah, man.
It's a higher score than I thought you were going to give him, but I'll take it.
I think it's because of his influence on the kind of current climate we're in, which has caused so much damage to like culture and the world as a result.
It's a mess. Lives.
It's a real mess, and he is one of the architects of it, really. So yeah, we're talking about two people who have had influences on culture in different ways. Crazy Eddie inspired a whole like system of salesmen who were super aggressive and really like driven by closing and being a bit mad and having a character and all of that shit. Like a lot of that was down to him. And then you got Milo Yiannopoulos, who is like, he is like kind of the mold from which Andrew Tate was poured. So,
yeah, a little bit. I don't know that he's done any sort of human trafficking, but
no, hopefully not.
Allegedly.
We really do hope not. Allegedly, but yeah, I mean, who are we kidding? So yeah, very high scores for Milo Yiannopoulos and a really good score for Eddie Antar, who's just really interesting.
It was a good story there.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed researching it. Also because if you get a chance to go online and look at the Crazy Eddie adverts, they're so 80s. Like this would not work in today's age. Although I still see adverts in this country with the tone being amplified of the person who's doing this. welcome to the new British sale, blah, 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 blah. And that tone is kind of a combination of the Micro Machines guy, but also Crazy Eddie invented that form of marketing where you are super jacked and enthusiastic, and it's such an 80s thing, like, oh my god, we've got to be there, so much energy. It's like nobody's falling for it in like 2023.
I wish we could show some of them in our little stream thing here, but I imagine we'd get like copyright.
Oh, we get a copyright strike for sure, because the brand, the Crazy Eddie brand, has been revived twice by other people, once in 2005 and once in 2012 or something. So somebody out there owns the Crazy Eddie name, and they're probably printing t-shirts to this day with the company logo on. It's a great name. As far as retail goes, this is a really fascinating insight into the history of retail and marketing and stuff like that. But this is a gold mine. If anybody wants to make one of those, and corporate films have become very popular recently with things like Air and the Tetris film, and obviously Wolf of Wall Street and the Social Network and all these films. I think this is something that should really be turned into a short series. You watched the Chippendales thing recently on Netflix? Was it Hulu?
I haven't watched it. I haven't watched that.
It's really good with Kumail Nanjiani in it as the owner of the business. It's really, really good. I'd highly recommend it. But this is ringing an awful lot of similar bells, only without the murder, which actually happened in the Chippendales thing. So I feel like this could be a really good series for Amazon or Netflix or whoever wants to give us a little money.
Or it could be a hilarious movie that's like made by or like in the format of Death of Stalin.
Oh yeah, that would work. That would so work. Could you imagine? Yeah, I definitely would watch that film, because there's all sorts of comedic potential with this, really. So much stupidity. So thank you to everyone for joining us. I had a lot of fun researching this. Derek, I know this has been a bit of a difficult one for you because this guy's quite horrible in a number of ways, and it's very sad.
I really only got uncomfortable with even trying to talk about using the F word or sucking on things.
That's not great. The fact that he was leveraging that, really, that's just, he's doing that to annoy people. So good job, Milo. But thank you to everyone. I forgot to mention them at the start again. Of course I did. But if you want to follow us on social media, please go to History's Greatest Idiots on Instagram or at Greatest Idiots on Twitter. If you would like to go to patreon.com/History's Greatest Idiots, we have a number of kind of things that you can, the levels that you can, tiers, that's the word, tiers that you can subscribe to. We will be switching them up a little bit soon, but go on there, sling us some cash. And we have our own links, which will be in the description of this podcast and video. So please go and check out mine and Derek's social media links if you want to sling us a bit of attention, some likes, follow, maybe all of that stuff. And don't forget to subscribe and like.
Yeah, do that stuff. And
do that stuff.
Give me money.
Get us funded. And we will see you. So we're going to be streaming this in a week or so. But the next episode will be out in terms of podcasts 2 weeks from when you're hearing this. If you listen straight away, if you don't, forget what I'm saying. Doesn't matter. But we'll be streaming live next weekend. And obviously the next episode will be out shortly after that as well. Derek, would you like to say goodbye, please?
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye. And we will see you all next weekend or in a couple of weeks if you listen to us after the fact. Thank you so much. Take care now. Bye.